During today's presentation, we are going to share a story about a true cloud transformation. I'm Kevin Verde. I'm Strategic Services Manager at Onyx. Gordon Food Service's mission is to serve customers with the highest quality food service products and services. In its course of over its 100-year history, to stay ahead of competition, I imagine there have been many transformations throughout the years. This transformation is about moving workers to the cloud so they can increase collaboration and therefore achieve better outcomes in all that they do, from engaged employees to happy customers. We're going to start by talking about the goals, then the results. Then we'll discuss the approach the GFS took to achieve their results. We'll try to leave some time at the end for your questions. So let's jump right in. Jeff, please introduce yourself and tell us about Gordon Food Service.
All right, great. Thanks, Kevin. So my name is Jeff Johnson. I'm the end user experience lead on our collaboration team at Gordon Food Service. And just a little bit about Gordon Food Service. This is our footprint here. If you live in any of the red areas, you may have seen our trucks rolling down the road. And if you haven't, when you go back home to those red areas, I guarantee you'll start seeing them because that's usually how it works, right? But yeah, we're been in business over 120 years. We are the largest family-operated food distributor in North America. Fourth largest overall, I think, if we compare to everybody. There's some other numbers there, 17,000 users. We deliver to over 100,000 customers weekly. So we're all over the place. Our customers are generally restaurants, schools, universities, hospitals, hotels, you name it. We also do have some consumer stores, though. So if you live in the U.S., mostly east of the Mississippi, you may have seen our Gordon Food Service stores. You can walk in and get restaurant-grade supplies and things like that. So all of us that live in those areas, that's where we always went for our, family gathering, food preparations and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a staple for us anyway. But we also really pride ourselves on being innovators in the food industry, food distribution industry. We have a lot of innovative products that we offer to our customers that our competition doesn't offer them. So we really pride ourselves on that. So in that innovative spirit, we went Google way back in 2012, which is how many years ago in technology years, right? It was a really bold move for a company of our size. But we really embraced that. At the time, we just said we really wanted to work with Google. It was very interesting to get partnering with them so that we can become more collaborative, more innovative. And so we've been using Google for quite a few years. The one thing that we didn't do, and it was a very conscious effort, is there was no coordinated effort to remove Microsoft or Office products. We had multiple different brands of Office products installed on our computers, and 84% of our computers had some Office products installed on them. And we left those in place just to make the transition to Google smoother at the time. But, one of the issues with that, well, I guess first of all, show of hands. How many of your companies are in that same boat? Okay, and so probably why you're here, which is understandable. So it was a challenge that we wanted to address. I won't belabor this slide, but in general, even though we had been in Google for a few years, we had users at all these different levels of collaboration. So we had people who were just clinging to the legacy tools. They weren't diving into Google Drive enough, weren't learning about how well you can collaborate and how much smarter you can make your workflows and things like that. And so it was really a problem that we wanted to address. And then late in 2016, as we were trying to figure out how to plan this effort, along came a very timely offer from Google. So Google had invited us to participate in the Next Mile project, which was a perfect timing and exactly what we were looking to do. So I'm going to pass to Jess, and she can tell you what the Next Mile project is about.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. So do you mind jumping to, thank you. So hi, everyone. I'm Jess. I'm the lead for the Next Mile program here at Google. And I want to explain to you a little bit more on what is the Next Mile project and how this partnership came to be with GFS and Onyx. So the Next Mile program started back in 2017, and it was a way for us to better understand the customers' blockers from migrating from their third-party tools into Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides. The program was an effort from Google partners and customers to help them increase collaboration by understanding their adoption blockers. The program had 3 parts. So the first part was the collection of issues. So what is stopping their employees from using Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides? Once GFS gave us that information, it was time for Google users to run use studies in GFS to understand the issues and if the solutions we were building would actually address the issues that they were reporting. The third part was about early testing. Are the features that we built good enough to solve the issues that GFS had reported to us? And if not, it was a great chance to get early feedback to fix those things. This partnership actually allowed us in GFS to reach the program goal, which was 75% of employees using exclusively Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides for collaboration. GFS wanted to increase their collaboration by reducing dependency on third-party tools, and we got in and helped them to reach the next mile.
Thanks. And yeah, when they first pitched the 75% goal, we questioned that a lot. We said, what if we don't hit it? And we, you know, it really, but yeah, you'll see in a minute, it was really extraordinary. We immediately saw great opportunities with this at the time. It was an opportunity to just, frankly, to start to renew knowledge of Docs, Sheets, and Slides. We had a lot of users who maybe they first tried it when they went live in 2012 and then just went back to their Office tool and never looked back. And a lot of changes had happened since then. And in the meantime, we had other people really doing some great things in Drive. So it was a great opportunity to circle back on those users. Cost avoidance was a huge issue. So we were faced with the majority of our Office packages had reached end of life, end of support. So we were looking at, in the next year or two, upgrading all of them. And it was a great time to reevaluate that. How many of these licenses do we really need to keep anymore? So that was a great timing for that. The third was just, it was a really intriguing opportunity to be able to have a voice to work right with Google, have a voice in helping them prioritize the roadmap and pointing out the things that are really critical to business users. And then finally, obviously, elevate our collaboration level, which was the ultimate goal.
Great. So, Jeff, let's talk about the results. Let's jump right to it. Did you hit 75%?
Drum roll. So yeah, we're gonna give away the ending first. As you can see, as it stands today, only 14% of our computers have an Office suite installed on them. So it's sort of 86%. I say that with an asterisk. You'll see that the trade-off was, though we took Office away from all of those computers, 22% of those computers, they still had a rational, approved need for a single application. And in most cases, it was a spreadsheet application, as you can imagine. So we do still have quite a few computers that are running a single app. But even then, those users are still using Google Sheets, Docs, Slides. They're using all of these as well. And but they additionally have to use these other apps for certain parts of their job. But G Suite has become our standard, and we're really moving forward in that direction. So,
Jeff, real quick, for people curious on how you got the initial pie chart, the small one, can you shed some light on that?
Yeah. So this was a sort of before and after pic. This was right from our computer management inventory system, and so that was based on numbers of computers. 82% of our computers had a full Office suite on them at the beginning of this project. And at the end of this project now, our inventory shows 14%. And again, when you look at some of the analytics that measure our collaboration, there's a lot more collaboration going on as a result that the inventory numbers don't necessarily reflect.
Fantastic, Jeff. So this is a significant change and transformation in your organization. How did you do it? What are the ways that what tools did you use to help you make that change in your organization?
Yeah, so where to start? I mean, fortunately, Google kind of had some templated ways to get this rolling for us, and they provided a general template, a general approach to the process. And so maybe, Jess, can you explain what the approach that you had provided us?
Yeah, absolutely. So Google's change management model has 4 parts. It's a 4-ply plan. The first one is Excite. It's about understanding who is using the third-party tools, put together a plan on how you're going to remove the and do the uninstalls, and when you're going to communicate that this is taking place. The second part is about enabling, which is communicating that you're actually doing the uninstalls and asking for volunteers to be the first ones out. The third part is about expand. That's when the removals actually happen. That is when you will find out what are the things that are blocking people from moving out of those third-party tools. And the third part, the embed part, is about understand. Now that you know who still has to use the legacy products, why they need to do it, and how are they going to maintain that usage and at the same time use G Suite.
Great, thanks. So the first thing we needed to do is, obviously get our project team. We knew we needed help. We didn't have the resources internally for this. And of course, we turned to our partner, Onyx. They've been a great, solid partner with us since we first went to Google in 2012. And we knew that they'd be able to provide all of the resources we needed for the project. So John here was our project manager. So John, do you want to kind of talk about how we got started?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. So I'm the Director of Cloud Professional Services at Onyx and was the project lead on the GFS Next Mile project. I was so excited to start this project. It was something that I was waiting to do for like the last 5 years, I think. So very exciting. The first thing that we wanted to do when we kicked off this project was understand how people were using these applications. It's kind of a little bit of a black box, or it was anyways to me, to know, how do people use Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. You have some assumptions, or you think or you think that they have them open all day and they're just constantly in those things creating content, but it's kind of an unknown. So we had a big reveal moment. We deployed a product called SoftWatch, and SoftWatch analyzes usage of Microsoft Office. And so we got this initial data export, which is on the graph here. And really interesting data, in my opinion. 3,600 employees at GFS hadn't opened Office in the last 30 days. And on the other side of the house there, you can see on that chart, is only 10% were considered heavy users of those products. And so kind of really interesting data. And once we had that initial data, we could stack and layer other data on top of that, like location or department, or how they used a single app, or if they used macros, and it helped us understand how we wanted to come up with the removal waves for our project. And so this was our project timeline, and there was some best practices in terms of work streams and methodology. For instance, those 3,600 employees that hadn't opened Office recently, that's our first removal wave, right? Kind of a quick win, build some momentum, build some sponsorship at the business level that'll help us in later removal waves. And so that was how we deployed the project, and it also gave us a chance to think more about the resistors and let them attend training and have more opportunities to convert their Office files into doc sheets and slides. And so the thing that'll be unique to you if you choose to do this project will be, how do you take that data and build in your removal waves? Because I don't believe that you want to do kind of a big bang, everyone goes at one point. And so you want to chunk people up into things that are going to be efficient and effective and successful. And so Jeff, what did we end up doing?
Yeah. So we definitely knew the big bang was out, right? We weren't going to try and, it would have been amazing though to try that, but probably pretty reckless too. So we looked at 3 options. We said we could do this by usage. The SoftWatch data was there. We could just do the low-hanging fruit first, go into the light users, and on up. Or we could do it by business function. Departments tend to be cohesive. We could just kind of go through each different department, and that way we're not disrupting the whole company all at once. Or by location, in our case, made a lot of sense because we have a lot of warehouse distribution centers, and it sort of made sense to maybe do that approach as well. But in the end, we tried all 3 options, and we even discovered a fourth option that ended up being our most effective, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. We rebranded the project. Google suggested Next Mile was the name of the project, and we were just trying to personalize it, and we wanted to really make this something that people were going to remember, something that sticks, a really easy term, and that kind of thing. And we wanted the name Google in the project so that people knew it was about it. So it was the Google Spark project, and believe me, I can look around. Eric's in the room. He probably knows. Everybody knew what the Google Spark project was. You had to live under a rock if you hadn't heard about it in the last couple of years. So that was a really important piece that we thought we did there. Obviously, really important that we didn't want this to be an IT project. So we had leadership sponsorship at the highest level. Our CEO was the one who made the initial announcement to the company that we are going to standardize on G Suite. And this is going to be the effort that you're going to be hearing about in the next year. So that was really important that it came from the CEO level. And then our entire senior leadership team, they were the first to go. So they were our early opt-ins along with our Google Guides and people like that. And then, of course, IS leadership said, okay, if senior leadership's going, so is all of IS. So we immediately had our very first group of people to go, and they were the ones that were helping sponsor and lead this entire effort.
So on the change management topic, you can see here that we used a variety of activities to help to engage and connect with the employees at GFS, whether they were a champion, a resistor, or a skeptic. And so, what's interesting about a project like this is that it's not necessarily a hard cutover from one to the other. I think you're going to have coexistence where we kind of walked in on this project expecting coexistence for a foreseeable future. And so when you come up with your change management plan for your project, you want to be very creative and inclusive. You want to use more carrots and some sticks too, but mainly a lot of carrots. And so one of the things we did is we raffled off Google Homes when people shared their story about how Google transformed their work, and that resonated with a lot of people, and other people we had to use different strategies to engage them. So a little bit of everything.
Yeah, interesting one I thought too that I thought about was the transformation labs. So Onyx runs a program called a transformation lab where they bring 30 people into a room and they spend 2 whole days intense. And we couldn't really pull that big of an effort together across the entire company, but we used it as a giveaway opportunity. So we had several people who won transformation labs for their location, and that was kind of a cool carrot, as you will.
Okay, so this slide here shows kind of the high-level diagram for the exception handling process. So when we got into the removal waves, this was kind of what people experienced. And so when we sent out a Google form, people could definitely opt in and have Office removed almost immediately. And there were people that did that. Other people that weren't quite ready were providing to us a list of reasons why they couldn't. And we grouped those into 4 categories that you see here: compliance, external collaboration, a complex business process, or a technical dependency like Excel does this and Sheets doesn't do this yet. And then there was a 4th category, though, where we just felt it was a lack of product knowledge because Google was constantly releasing new features, and so maybe they just hadn't heard yet that the thing in Sheets that they did in Excel exists now. And so we use that as the opportunity to provide education to those users and extra training and support and kind of unblock them in that removal wave real time.
Yep, and we use the term myth busters.
Right,
There's
yeah.
a lot of myth busting that we had to do. So this is what the experience was for a user. So they would get a notification, and these were personalized, so they'd get an email, it would have their computer asset tag, and it would say, you are in this next wave. And it would have the title of the software that's being removed from their computer on this date, and we gave them approximately a 3 to 4 week window before the removal. And then we also gave them a 1-week reminder ahead of that, and then finally a 1-day reminder. And in between, they had all the resources that we were providing for training. So they were on-site training, webinars, or just the standard Google resource learning guides and things. And of course, our Google Spark team, so they could email us anytime, and we were very active with that on a daily basis. And then, of course, we just did the go live, and that was all automated. Our endpoint management team could automatically remove from hundreds of computers all at once, and we were all ready for the post go live support. And I think the communications were so. I think we did really well. We hit it out of the park because I don't think we caught anybody off guard. I think everybody knew it was coming when it was their day. And this shows sort of the progress of our waves. So at first this was supposed to be a 1-year project, but just due to trying to work around a lot of our business priorities, in the food distribution business, I mean, we have so many different kinds of customers that have different times of year that are the biggest impact, So obviously the holidays like Thanksgiving and Mother's Day, but then schools, for example, have graduations and then the start of the school year. And so they're staggered, so it was really difficult to kind of tiptoe around the business and do these waves when it fit best for everybody. And that's when I said, that's why we really tried all 3 options. And you'll see that we made some gradual results in that first year, and then you see this big dip in the second year. So what happened was this, if you have any takeaway from this at all, is get your leadership, your senior leadership, involved in the process. Not just to sponsor it and say, hey, we're all for it. I mean, our senior leadership team, this is really kind of how it came about. We were at a regular status update report to the senior leadership team meeting. And they were looking at the results so far, and they're just going, why is this so difficult? Because mind you, these people all went Google a year ago already, and they were working just fine, and they're going, why do we have so many exceptions? Can we see the data? And we said, sure, we can give you all the data for all of your reports. And they said, yeah, we're going to take it back, and we'll go through and re-review all these. So we did just that. We provided a Google Sheet with all the hundreds or thousands of users that reported up to each of our senior leaders, and we shared it out to all of them. They took it back to their leadership teams, their individual leadership teams, and they tasked them with going back through reviewing every single user in all of these lists. And we gave them about, 3-4 weeks to do this process. And when they were done, their lists were all checked off, nice little check boxes for us to decide who gets to keep, who gets to get office removed, and who maybe has an exception to keep a single app. So we gave them a little leeway there. And as you can see, the result was, it was a large second pass, sort of a waterfall removal for that. I think we did have to do it over the course of 3 to 4 weeks just because of the numbers of computers that we were affecting. But by and large, that was hugely impactful, and we probably should have started with that earlier had we known that would have been an effective option.
That, I got to say, that was kind of a stick disguised as a carrot. When your boss is like, hey, how come you can't get rid of Office yet? And it's like, oh, I guess, yeah, I probably can.
Yeah, it's a lot harder when our team, our project team, is trying to challenge somebody's exception request. I need it because of this or I need it because of that. But when it's their own managers and directors who are all in on this project, they were really able to say, I think you're going to be okay. They were the ones that, you got your Google Guides to lean on, and let's just try it, and I think you're going to be okay. And even though we sort of thought we might have had a lot of slinky effect, where we're going to be reinstalling, hundreds more packages after the removal, that just didn't happen. It was just literally very quiet. I mean, relatively quiet, so to speak. So while all this was going on, Jess, who's been sitting here quietly for a while, Jess's teams were going crazy behind the scenes. This is just a sampling of some of the advanced updates that they were able to get to us really early. I mean, most of these we've had for well over a year. I mean, and they were just hugely impactful. As you can see, some we consider game changers. But But this really made the difference, especially on that second pass, because by the time we had all those new features, a lot more people, a lot of those gaps had been closed for a lot more people. And so what was it like behind the scenes when we kept throwing things at you like that?
I love that you mentioned checkbox, and checkbox was one of the issues you raised that we fixed. So your leadership was able to use something that came from your no issues list. It's a great feeling knowing that we're solving user issues. And one story that comes to mind is actually print formatting in Sheets. And in the grand scheme of things, it was a small change. But one thing that we asked our customers to do was when they reported an issue to tell us how many users it impacted in their company. And when we went to look the amount of people it impacted, printing formatting in Sheets was 10 of thousands of users. So it's great to know that we're doing something that is making our life easier, that is saving you time, that is making you more collaborative. And that is a great segue into our next slide that talks about what were the issues and how many issues you reported to us. So as I briefly mentioned, the biggest part of Next Mile is this transparency of customers telling Google what is going on, and Google giving a transparency to the customer on what those issues look like in our roadmap. GFS became this active voice and helped us define where we were going. And since the start of our engagements, GFS has reported over 85 showstoppers and high priority issues. 30 have been solved. 30 are currently in our roadmap to be solved this year or in 2020. 19 are under research, and 6 we communicated that we wouldn't be able to fix. More transparency gave more power to GFS to better decide on how they were running their uninstalls and to find alternative solutions where they knew we wouldn't be able to solve their problems right away.
Yeah, so our inside joke always is, and I know there were other Next Mile participants, but our inside joke is every time they released a new thing that answered one of our blockers, we say we saved the world. So, so we've saved the world 30 times so far, so we're pretty happy about that. John, you want to talk about what we're doing now, actually?
Yeah, so when you get into this project, some of the most complex use cases that you'll run into will be macros. And so during the course of this project, Google had a very nice, timely feature release on Google Sheets called the Macro Recorder. And the Macro Recorder will help you unblock those simple workflows inside of a spreadsheet. But for those more complex ones that someone wrote, 15 years ago and still linger in your business and they're crucial to your business, that requires a little bit larger of an effort. So you either have, a developer in-house, or you can rely on a partner, and you can rebuild those using things like Google Apps Script or App Maker or things, other products out there. So I think that's, again, we saved that for the last phase of the project just because we knew it was going to be pretty challenging, but we have ongoing development efforts to squash some of those macros right now.
So Jeff, one of the goals was collaboration and improving collaboration at GFS. Have you seen collaboration growth at GFS as a result of this project?
Yeah, definitely. So as I said, we already had various groups that were doing a lot of really great things in Google Drive, but then we had those stragglers that they just hadn't come along because they hadn't seen the product, recent enough, and they just were clinging to the old tools. But this opened their eyes to a lot of those new possibilities. And so it's really driven some transformational changes for some of our groups. And this is just 3 really brief examples. The slide deck would have been way too long to try to give everybody their rightful due to be highlighted here. But it's just an example of, like when you can take contract agreement kind of inputs, and you can take them in using a Google form, and then those agreements are actually processed on the back end and sent to the user as a pre-filled out PDF. And if you think about that, the old way was you have template version 1.0.7 and then template, 1.0.8, and you end up with a lot of old templates floating around as attachments. You don't know who's using what. And it was a real compliance problem because we have legal language in some of these things. So this was game changer for them. They were really excited that we were able to do this as a Google solution. Google Sheets being published through a site or just shared. Publishing your data instead of sending thousands of copies of your data every week. Another, just a huge thing. And, there's times where, like that data, it's important how fresh it is. Yet it only went out once a week. And once a week wasn't enough for some people, but that's all the teams could really do is generate a report, email it out once a week, and then the next day it's old data already. So now we have teams taking the Google Sheets and they're sharing them or publishing them through a Google site or whatever. In this one example, example number 2, it's a fully interactive site where all of our Salesforce can go to it in their resource center. They can query, search, filter, really intuitive, no training involved. It was just a nice web interface page for them to do that. And on the back end, the team is just keeping that Google Sheet updated. And as simple as that, one source of the truth. And then just another different example of a warehouse worker who, same thing, he used to send out really complex warehouse metrics as attachments to his warehouse managers. And, they had some canned reports in that helped the manager to see how their, their stats were and things like this. But in this, he gave me a specific example. He said, he goes, when he put this in a Google Sheet instead of emailing out an attachment, and then he built a Data Studio front end to it, which is a really cool option to do. He gave his manager the Data Studio link, and his manager could intuitively see a number that didn't look right. He drilled down to that number, and it identified the aisle in his warehouse where the problem was occurring, and he fixed the problem, like, almost immediately. And he said, just by giving him this manager this Data Studio front end with his real-time data on the back end, he was able to reduce a barcode scanning problem they were having by 60% in their first month, which was just amazing. Just giving them data in real time that was easy to use. And these are solutions that people are creating themselves. They're not coming to us and having us build them for them. They're just learning to use the tools, and it truly is transformational. So we have a lot of testimonials, and I'm not going to read them all because I'll warn you in advance. There's about 3 slides of these, but the thing to point out is this is across all business units. We have people in multi-unit distribution. We have marketing, sales, legal team, which sometimes you think your legal team is the last people that are going to come aboard. They are using Google like crazy. I mean, when they've learned of some of the things they can do with the contract reviews and stuff. HR teams, routing teams, just across the entire business. And when you just kind of, that's why I threw a word cloud together instead of reading the whole thing. But if you look at the words that stand out, I mean, they're all talking about the collaboration, the change, how quick it is, how much it makes them able to do things on their own, and time, of course, saving time. So it really is. We do have tools. Because of time, we didn't want to try to fit them into this presentation, but there are some tools now through our G Suite dashboards, the Insight Manager, where we can actually see, you can actually measure collaboration, like how much people are collaborating as well, and we're just seeing really a lot of collaboration going on at those levels now.
So, Jeff, fantastic results. That's really exciting to hear. Is this the end of the next mile? Where are we now?
Yeah, so it's not quite a 2-year project after all. So obviously the initial big effort of identifying issues and removing all the Office software that we didn't need to use anymore, that we're kind of at the end of that. But this is like the G Suite focus is now our new normal. I mean, this is as our CEO said at the beginning, we are standardizing on G Suite. So people, we're using G Suite first, and we're using the legacy tools when we need to, basically. But yeah, so we're still continuing to address the blockers. So we still are active with Google, with Jess's team. We said, hey, as long as you're willing to continue working with us, we're willing to continue tracking these issues with Google. And so that's still active, work in progress. And I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to. Okay.
Great. So what are some of the lessons learned from the project?
So we talked about some of them. Sponsorship from your senior leadership is huge. You don't want this to be an IT project. People tend to hate IT already enough. This is not a way to make friends. So you definitely want your sponsorship. I think we did a really great job of prioritizing our blockers. And I'll give Google credit. They were really reactive to a lot of these, the surprises that as Jess pointed out, some things that didn't seem like a big deal to Google were a big deal to a lot of our users in some cases.
I would say when you're when you're capturing the blockers or the exception requests that people made, keep that data handy, because at some point Google's going to release a feature that eliminates that blocker, and you want to circle back with those people and tell them, all right, you're unblocked now. So
yeah, remember what you told us a year ago?
Yeah,
well, guess what? So. So yeah, and what else? The other things we did good, providing learning resources. As you know, everybody has different learning styles. We had people who wanted to come and sit in a classroom. We had people who will never come and sit in a classroom. And we have people that won't watch a 1 hour long webinar, just because it's just too long. So they want bits and pieces. So you have to really cater to all of them. And so we were able to provide a lot of different types of learning resources for people. And then communications, we did, again, I won't reiterate how much that's impactful. Make sure your users are on board. Make sure they know what's happening. Don't catch anybody off guard, and things should go great. So I think the things that, if we had to improve on something was, if we would have known at the end that the senior leadership team drive was going to be the most effective, we might have developed that strategy early on. And then finally our Google Guides. So we have, does everybody know what a Google Guide is? We just throw that term around. Go ahead, John, tell us what a Google Guide is.
So if you've already gone Google, even just for mail and calendar and the messaging suite, a Google Guide might be familiar to you, but it's someone that is an early adopter. They get early access to the application so that you can train them up, get them savvy on the product. So when the rest of the organization has to go through what they went through, they can be kind of feet on the ground support to kind of offset any spike you might have in your support desk, and not just support, but just they get to see cool stuff first. So they get enthused about that and they become kind of a champion for the project. And so we use that on I'm sure you used it when you first went Google. And then we retapped into that type of resource during the Next Mile project.
Yeah, we actually had a lot of our Google Guides who volunteered way back in 2012 signed up again to be Google Guides this time, so that was kind of cool. Yeah, so I just think we could have used them maybe more. Just to give you an idea, we had about one Google Guide for every 20 employees. So there's a lot of them, and they're spread out in every part of the company. So.